Have you ever found yourself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling, asking God why? Why? Despite your prayers, your faith, and your obedience, does financial struggle seem to follow you wherever you go? You tithe, you work hard, you believe in His promises, yet the doors don't open. The opportunities slip through your fingers like sand. You watch as others, some who don't even acknowledge God, rise to success effortlessly, while you, a chosen one, feel stuck in a never-ending battle with lack. Is it a punishment, a test, a delay with purpose? Or is something happening behind the scenes that you haven't been able to see? The Bible tells us that God's people perish for lack of knowledge. Could it be that there are unseen forces working against you? Could it be that there are biblical principles that many have overlooked, principles that could change everything? Think about the great men and women in the Bible. Joseph, who had to endure slavery and imprisonment before stepping into abundance. Job, who lost everything before God restored him double. The Israelites, who wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before entering the promised land. What if what you're going through isn't the end of your story, but the middle of a process? What if your current financial hardship is part of something greater, something that, if understood, could lead to breakthrough? Today, we're going deep. We're going to uncover the hidden reasons why so many chosen ones struggle financially. We'll expose the patterns, the spiritual battles, and the divine timing that many fail to recognize. And most importantly, we'll explore what God's Word says about overcoming it. Because if you've ever felt like you were meant for more but just can't seem to step into it, if you've ever cried out to God, asking why your blessing feels delayed, then this might be the message you've been waiting for. Stay with me until the end, because by the time we're finished, you may never see your struggle the same way again. Financial struggle is one of the most painful and confusing experiences for a believer. It's not just about the unpaid bills, the closed doors, or the feeling of always being one step behind. It's about the deeper, more haunting questions that arise in your heart. God, why am I struggling when I am trying to do everything right? Why do I see others prosper, even those who mock you, while I, someone who prays, fasts, and follows your word, seem to be stuck? These thoughts creep in late at night when sleep escapes you, when you're staring at the ceiling, searching for answers, feeling like you've hit an invisible wall. For many chosen ones, financial struggle isn't just a temporary setback. It feels like a pattern, a cycle that repeats itself no matter how hard they try to break free. They work diligently, they give, they believe in God's promises, but nothing seems to change. Some feel like they are walking in divine favor in every other area of their life. Yet when it comes to money, there is always resistance. Doors that should have opened remain locked. Opportunities slip away. Every time they feel like they're finally about to break through, something happens that pulls them back down. And the most painful part? Watching those who have no regard for God seem to thrive effortlessly. They live in luxury, they build businesses, they enjoy abundance, while God's people, the ones who have dedicated their lives to Him, seem to struggle in ways that don't make sense. It raises difficult questions. Does God actually want His people to prosper? Have I done something wrong? Am I under a curse? Or is this suffering part of some greater purpose that I just don't understand yet? The truth is, this isn't a new question. From the beginning of time, many of God's most faithful servants have faced financial hardship. Joseph, who was given a dream of greatness, spent years as a slave and a prisoner before stepping into his destiny. Job, a righteous man, lost everything before God restored him. The Israelites, who were promised a land flowing with milk and honey, wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before they saw the fulfillment of that promise. Even the early church, filled with men and women who had witnessed the miracles of Christ, faced persecution, loss, and financial hardship. But what if the struggle isn't meant to destroy you? What if it's meant to prepare you? What if there are unseen forces working against you because of the calling on your life? What if there are biblical principles about money that many chosen ones have never been taught? Today, we are going to explore these questions deeply, We are going to uncover the hidden reasons why so many of God's people face financial hardship. We will examine the spiritual battles that might be at play, the divine timing that often requires patience, and the financial wisdom that many overlook. Because here's the truth: God is not a God of lack. He is a God of abundance. And if you are struggling, there is a reason. And more importantly, there is a way out. This journey will require you to see your struggle in a new light. It will challenge you to examine your own mindset, your own habits, and even your own faith. But by the end of this, you will no longer be a victim of financial hardship. You will have the knowledge, the spiritual tools, and the biblical understanding to start walking in the financial freedom that God has planned for you. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear could change everything. Financial struggle is not just about numbers on a bank statement or the weight of unpaid bills. It's deeper than that. It's spiritual, emotional, and psychological. It wears you down in ways that people who have never faced it will never understand. It's the feeling of working hard but never seeing results. It's the exhaustion of trying to stay positive while constantly feeling like you're being pushed back. It's the quiet pain of watching others succeed while you struggle just to get by. For many chosen ones, this struggle becomes an invisible burden, one that is rarely talked about in churches or among believers. You are told to have faith, to trust God, to be patient. But what happens when the waiting stretches on for years? What happens when no matter how much you pray, fast, tithe, and believe, the situation remains the same, or worse, it gets harder? What happens when you start questioning if maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to prosper in the first place? And then come the doubts. They creep in slowly, whispering lies that challenge your faith. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm not praying enough. Maybe God is punishing me. Maybe I'll always be in this place. You see people who don't even believe in God living in abundance, traveling the world, building businesses, and enjoying life without the burdens you carry. You see those who cheat, lie, and manipulate their way to success. And it stings because you know that if you compromise, if you bend the rules, if you stop trying to do things God's way, things might be easier. And then there are the moments when you feel judged, not just by the world, but by fellow believers. Some tell you that if you just had more faith, you wouldn't be struggling. Others assume that you must have done something wrong, that maybe you're under a curse, or that you're not managing your finances properly. But they don't see the sacrifices you've made. They don't see how hard you work, how much you give, how deeply you trust in God's promises. They don't see the nights you've spent in prayer, begging for clarity, for direction, for some sign that things will get better. And let's be honest, financial struggle is exhausting. It drains you physically, mentally, and emotionally. It makes it hard to focus on anything else. How can you fully step into your purpose when your mind is constantly consumed with worry about how you're going to make it through the next month? How can you give freely when you barely have enough for yourself? How can you focus on God's plan for your life when every day feels like a battle just to survive? But what if I told you that this struggle is not just random? What if I told you that there's a reason why so many chosen ones experience this? That it's not just bad luck, not just poor circumstances, but something deeper, something spiritual? Throughout the Bible, we see that many of God's greatest servants went through seasons of financial struggle before stepping into their calling. Joseph, destined for greatness, was sold into slavery and thrown into prison before becoming a ruler. Job, a man of deep faith, lost everything before God restored him. The Israelites, promised a land of abundance, wandered in lack for decades before they finally saw the fulfillment of God's promise. Even Jesus, the Son of God, lived a humble life with no earthly riches, despite having access to the fullness of heaven's resources. Why? Why does God allow His chosen ones to go through these seasons of financial hardship? Why does He let His people struggle, while those who reject Him seem to prosper? Why does it feel like the very people who are called to do His work face the greatest financial resistance? The answer is not simple, but it is clear. There are biblical reasons why this happens. Some are related to testing and preparation. Some are the result of spiritual warfare. Others are due to a lack of knowledge about biblical financial principles. But no matter what the reason, there is one truth that remains. God does not intend for his people to remain in lack forever. There's a way through this. There's a way to break free. But to do that, we must first understand why the struggle exists in the first place. Now, we are going to dive deep into the Word of God. We are going to uncover the hidden reasons behind financial struggles, the spiritual battles that might be holding you back, and the biblical principles that can lead to financial breakthrough. Because once you understand the truth, once you see the patterns, once you recognize the spiritual dynamics at play, you will never look at your financial situation the same way again. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could be the key to unlocking the financial freedom that God has planned for you. Biblical reasons why chosen ones struggle financially. Financial struggle among God's people is not new. Throughout history, many of God's most faithful servants have faced seasons of lack before stepping into their divine purpose. But why? Why does God allow his chosen ones to struggle, while those who have no regard for him seem to prosper? The Bible provides several key reasons, each revealing a different aspect of why financial hardship is often part of the journey for those called by God. Testing and refinement by God. James 1 verses 2-4, Deuteronomy 8 verse 2. One of the first reasons chosen ones struggle financially is that God uses seasons of lack to refine them. This is not a punishment but a preparation. Before God can entrust his people with great wealth, he must first test their hearts, their character, and their faithfulness. Look at the life of Joseph. God gave him dreams of leadership and prosperity, but before those dreams became reality, he was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. For years, he lived in a state of lack, completely dependent on God. It was only after enduring the season of hardship that Joseph was elevated to a position of wealth and authority. Deuteronomy 8 verse 2 says, "Remember how the Lord your God led you all the way in the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and test you in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands." This verse reveals a key principle. Before God brings someone into abundance, he tests their heart. He wants to see if they will remain faithful even when resources are scarce. Will they still trust him? Will they still obey him? Or will they compromise, chase after quick wealth, or turn away? James 1 verses 2-4 reinforces this idea. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. God is not just concerned with blessing his people. He is concerned with making sure they are prepared for the blessing. A person who is not spiritually, emotionally, and mentally ready for wealth will not be able to sustain it. And so, he allows financial struggle as a means of refining his chosen ones, shaping them into people who can handle prosperity with wisdom, humility, and generosity. Spiritual warfare and oppression. Ephesians 6 verse 12, Daniel 10 verses 12-13. Another major reason why chosen ones struggle financially is because of spiritual warfare. The enemy knows that a believer with financial resources is a threat to his kingdom. Wealth in the hands of a righteous person can fund ministries, support the needy, and advance God's work on earth. Because of this, Satan works overtime to keep God's people in financial bondage. Ephesians 6 verse 12 reminds us, "For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms." Many financial struggles are not natural but spiritual. The enemy uses financial blockages, sudden losses, and cycles of poverty to keep God's people from stepping into their full purpose. Look at Daniel. When he prayed for understanding, his answer was delayed because of spiritual resistance. Daniel 10 verses 12-13 says, "Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. If Daniel's prayers were hindered by spiritual opposition, how much more could financial blessings be blocked by the enemy? This is why some believers experience constant setbacks. They are facing a spiritual battle that they haven't yet recognized. The good news is that these strongholds can be broken. Through prayer, fasting, and biblical declarations, believers can take authority over financial oppression and release God's provision into their lives. But this requires discernment, persistence, and spiritual warfare. Mismanagement of financial principles. Proverbs 21 verse 5, Luke 16 verse 10. While some financial struggles are caused by testing and spiritual warfare, others are due to a lack of knowledge about biblical financial principles. The Bible provides clear instructions on how to handle money, yet many believers ignore these principles and suffer as a result. Proverbs 21 verse 5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance, but everyone who is hasty comes only to poverty." This verse highlights the importance of diligence, planning, and patience in financial matters. Many people struggle financially because they do not manage their money wisely. They fail to budget, they make impulsive decisions, or they do not invest in ways that align with biblical wisdom. Luke 16 verse 10 also provides a crucial principle. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. God watches how we handle the little we have before He entrusts us with more. If a believer mismanages small resources, why would God give them greater wealth? This is why financial literacy and biblical stewardship are so important. Those who apply God's financial principles, giving generously, avoiding debt, saving diligently, and working with integrity, position themselves for financial increase. Many chosen ones suffer financially because they have not yet learned or applied these principles. But once they do, they begin to see a shift in their financial situation. Now that we understand the biblical reasons behind financial struggles, we must ask, how do we move forward? How do we break out of these cycles and step into the abundance that God has promised? The answer lies not just in knowing these truths, but in applying them. And one of the most powerful ways to gain clarity and encouragement is through testimonies. In the next section, we will explore real-life examples of people who have faced financial hardship, applied biblical principles, and experienced breakthrough. These stories will serve as a powerful reminder that no matter how long you have struggled, no matter how impossible your situation seems, God is able to turn things around. So keep watching, because what comes next could be the key to your own breakthrough. If you have ever found yourself in a cycle of financial struggle, wondering why things aren't changing despite your faithfulness, you are not alone. So many chosen ones have walked this road before you. Some have remained in the struggle for years, never understanding why. But others, those who pressed in, sought wisdom, and fought through with faith, have experienced breakthrough. And today, I want to share a powerful testimony that will give you hope. There was a man, a devoted believer, a man of prayer and integrity. He had been walking with God for years, yet he could not seem to break free from financial hardship. No matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he prayed, it felt like his finances were under attack. He tithed faithfully, he served in church, he lived a life of righteousness. But the struggle continued. Bills piled up, debts increased, doors of opportunity closed before him. He watched as others who did not honor God seemed to prosper, while he remained stuck. One night, he cried out to God in frustration. He had reached his breaking point. "Lord, I don't understand. Your word says you are my provider, that you will bless the work of my hands. But no matter what I do, I keep struggling. What am I missing?" And then something happened. In that moment of desperation, he felt a strong impression in his spirit, a deep conviction to search the scriptures, not just for comfort, but for understanding. He realized that while he had been faithful in prayer, he had never truly studied God's financial principles. He had assumed that giving alone would bring increase, but he had not applied the other laws of financial stewardship. So he began a journey of seeking wisdom. He started reading the Bible with fresh eyes, searching for every verse related to wealth, work, and stewardship. He discovered Proverbs 22, verse 7, which says, "The borrower is slave to the lender," and realized that debt was keeping him bound. He found Ecclesiastes 11, verse 2, which teaches the importance of diversifying income, and saw that he had been relying on only one source. He meditated on Luke 16, verse 10, where Jesus said, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much," and recognized that he had not been managing the little he had with wisdom. And then he took action. He created a plan to get out of debt. He disciplined himself to live below his means, to save, to invest wisely, and to use what God had given him with responsibility. And as he did this, something shifted. At first, there was no immediate miracle, but over time, doors that had been shut for years began to open. Opportunities appeared that he never saw before. His income increased, and as he applied God's principles, he began to experience financial peace for the first time in his life. But here's the most powerful part. His financial breakthrough didn't just change his own life. It allowed him to bless others. Because he was no longer drowning in financial stress, he could give more freely. He could support ministries, help the needy, and fund projects that advance God's kingdom. What once seemed like an impossible struggle became a testimony of victory, not just for himself, but for those around him. This is the pattern we see in Scripture. Joseph endured years of struggle, but when his breakthrough came, he wasn't just blessed. He became a blessing to an entire nation. Job lost everything, but when God restored him, his wealth was doubled. The Israelites suffered in the wilderness, but when they finally stepped into the promised land, they entered a place of abundance. If you are struggling today, understand this. Financial hardship is not your final destination. God's plan for you is not to remain in lack. But breakthrough doesn't just come through waiting. It comes through understanding and applying the principles that God has laid out in His Word. So ask yourself, are there areas in your financial life where you need wisdom? Are there biblical principles that you have overlooked? Are there habits that are keeping you in a cycle of struggle? Because the moment you align yourself with God's ways, things will begin to shift. The enemy may fight you. The process may take time, but God is faithful. If you seek wisdom, if you apply what He teaches, you will see transformation. This is not just a theory. It's a promise. God does not want His chosen ones bound by financial stress. He has given us the tools for freedom, but we must be willing to use them. And now, as we move to the final part of this message, I want to leave you with a challenge. Because knowledge without action leads nowhere. You have heard the truth. Now, what will you do with it? Stay with me, because in the next section, I will lay out practical steps that you can take to begin walking in financial breakthrough. It's time to step into the abundance that God has for you. You have come this far, and that means something. It means you are not content with staying in financial struggle. It means you are searching for answers, for solutions, for a way forward. And let me tell you, God sees that. He sees your hunger for change. He sees your desire to walk in the fullness of His promises. And He is ready to guide you. But knowledge alone is not enough. It is not just hearing the truth that changes your life. It is applying it. The Bible tells us in James 1 verse 22, "Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says." So now, let's talk about what you can do. How do you move from struggling financially to walking in the provision God has for you? How do you break the cycle and step into financial freedom? Step 1. Identify the root cause of your financial struggles. As we discussed earlier, financial struggles can have different causes. For some, it is a season of testing and preparation. For others, it is spiritual warfare. And for many, it is a lack of financial wisdom. Take a moment to reflect on your situation. Have you been faithful in managing what God has already given you? Have you unknowingly fallen into financial habits that are keeping you stuck? Have you been neglecting to apply biblical principles to your finances? Or do you sense that the enemy is actively fighting against your breakthrough? Identifying the root cause is the first step toward change, because when you know what you're dealing with, you can take the right steps to overcome it. Step 2. Commit to studying and applying biblical financial principles. Many believers pray for financial breakthroughs, but they never take the time to learn what God actually says about money. The Bible is filled with financial wisdom, principles that, when applied, lead to financial peace and stability. Here are a few key principles to start with. Live within your means, Proverbs 21 verse 20. Avoid unnecessary debt and practice wise financial stewardship. Work diligently and with integrity, Proverbs 10 verse 4. Hard work and faithfulness lead to increase. Be generous, Luke 6 verse 38. Giving is a kingdom principle that brings blessing. Diversify your income, Ecclesiastes 11 verse 2. Do not rely on one source. Seek multiple streams of provision. Seek wisdom. Proverbs 3 verses 9 to 10. Financial literacy is crucial. Educate yourself on money management. Set aside time to study these principles in depth. Write them down. Meditate on them. And most importantly, apply them in your daily life. Step 3. Break free from the spirit of lack through prayer and fasting. If you sense that your financial struggles are connected to spiritual warfare, then it is time to fight back. Ephesians 6 verse 12 reminds us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Financial oppression is real. The enemy does not want God's people to prosper because he knows that financial freedom allows believers to fund ministries, help the needy, and expand God's kingdom. So how do you break free? 1. Pray with authority. Declare God's promises over your finances and rebuke every spirit of lack, delay, and financial bondage. 2. Fast for breakthrough. Fasting strengthens your spirit and allows you to break through spiritual barriers. 3. Speak life over your finances. Instead of complaining about lack, declare that God is your provider and that financial blessings are coming. Do not take this lightly. Spiritual warfare requires persistence, but when you stand firm in faith, the enemy has no choice but to flee. Step 4. Take practical steps toward financial growth. Faith without works is dead, James 2 verse 26. While prayer is powerful, God also expects us to take practical steps toward financial wisdom. Create a budget. Know exactly where your money is going. Pay off debt. Start small, but be consistent in reducing financial burdens. Develop new skills. Invest in yourself. Learning new skills can open financial doors. Look for new opportunities. Sometimes, financial increase comes from stepping out in faith into new ventures. God blesses action. When you take steps in faith, He will guide and multiply your efforts. Step 5. Stay faithful and trust God's timing. Financial breakthrough does not always happen overnight. Joseph's journey took years. The Israelites wandered for decades. Job suffered before his restoration came. But in every case, God was faithful. If you are in a waiting season, do not give up. Keep trusting. Keep applying God's principles. And keep believing that your breakthrough is coming. Galatians 6 verse 9 encourages us. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. God is not done with your story. He is preparing you for something greater. If you stay faithful, you will see His provision in ways you never expected. Now, I want to hear from you. What stood out to you the most from this message? Have you ever faced financial struggles that felt like a spiritual battle? What steps are you committing to take today to break free from financial hardship? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. Your testimony could encourage someone else who is walking through the same struggle. If this message resonated with you, be sure to like this video so that more people can see it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful teaching that can transform your life. And before you go, I want to invite you to watch another video that will strengthen your faith even more. Click here to watch how to overcome financial bondage through faith. It will give you even deeper insight into God's plan for your financial freedom. Remember this: you are not meant to stay in lack. You are not forgotten. God has a plan for your provision, and He is guiding you toward it. Stay faithful, apply His principles, and watch what He does in your life. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you.